go.
Well, everybody, it's Marty and Misty for Inspiring Connections, Episode 9. How are you, Misty?
I'm good.
And today's episode, we're going to get right into it. We're not going to do a big, long introduction because we have John Lusher on with us.
Yes.
And John, we've known John for a long, long time, from the very first time we got online. And in my mind, he is just, you know, the epitome of class. He sets a wonderful example online. He's an expert in social marketing and digital marketing.
He does a lot of training for business owners, and he does social media consulting.
Yep.
And he's also a voiceover talent. Would you
Yes,
believe
we
that?
just found that out. I just found that out.
But you know what? He does have a very good voice. I like his
He
voice.
absolutely does. And he's just a great guy. If you're new to social media or even been on social media for a while and you're looking for an example to follow, John Lusher is definitely it. I have the utmost respect for the man, and he just is, you know, he just does it right. You know?
And not only that, I think a lot of business owners who are listening to us, or those who want to start their own business, John has given us some good insights and a lot of great tips.
Absolutely. So we'll get right into it now. Without further ado, let's get into it with John Lusher. John, welcome to PodJam TV Live. Finally. For
Took
folks,
a while to get here, but that's
exactly. Well worth the effort. For folks who may not know who John, I can't believe anybody would not know who John Lusher is. But for folks that don't know, tell everyone kind of what you do and what you're about, and kind of what you do online.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you both, Marty and Misty, for inviting me to be here and for those also kind words. It's funny, Marty, because between me and you and Rob Carnes, I think we kind of live for football season because we give each other such a hard time and we trash talk so much.
Yeah, and I'll throw Bill Mitchell in there too. I'll throw him under the bus.
I was going to say we've got to throw Bill Mitchell under the bus too, since he's a long-suffering Raiders fan. But it's funny because it's how relationships have formed and built over the years, and a lot of it has been around football and social media. But no, thank you all for asking me to be here and letting me be here. For anyone that doesn't know, I describe myself as a consultant, and I know that's an umbrella term that's easy for all of us to use. But I specialize in social media and social marketing, social networking. I come from a direct sales background where I spent probably, I'd say, the better part of 20 years selling product. Computer networks, telephone systems, actually hands-on products, things that, you could go out and demonstrate and things of that nature. And during that time, I learned a lot about marketing and marketing myself, marketing my products, because I worked for a small company that didn't do a lot of outside marketing. But I learned a lot about marketing, and as it has evolved using social media more and more, I've gotten more into that aspect of it. And I've had my own company for the past several years, working with small to medium businesses to help them develop not only their marketing plan, but how digital and social integrates into that. So it really depends on the client. Some clients I work with just to develop plan. Other clients I work with to implement and track the plan. And in some clients, they just bring me in to kind of oversee what they're doing. So it really depends on what the client needs. But it all revolves around marketing and social media and connecting through this new medium that we're all a part of, obviously, with PodJam, .tv. It's what we're all part of nowadays. So.
And I also, I was like looking through your bio, and you also do some training, right?
I do, and I've done over the years. And several years ago, I spent some time in a networking group, BNI, Business Network International, and actually one of their sister organizations, the Referral Institute, and became certified as a trainer on their products and what they did. And I've kind of carried that through to social media, to where I do some training not only on Facebook and Twitter and the different social tools, but train businesses and the employees within the business about how to use the tools, how to optimize the tools, and make better use of them. So
See, he's our perfect guest.
Yes, he is. Absolutely.
You all are way too kind. Thank you.
And you're mentioning social media, and I totally agree. I mean, this is really we've all been in it for a little while, but it's still a very new thing, a new form of media.
For a lot.
Yeah, for a lot of people. And and in your experience, social media, is that a great way to grow someone's business? I would think it would be.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the one thing that social media does is and this is a little bit of a kind of a misnomer to say it this way, but it levels the playing field for smaller businesses versus the Coca-Colas of the world, or the Ford or Chryslers of the world that have billions of dollars to spend on advertising and marketing. For the local hardware owner down the street, or the local insurance agent down the street, or remodeler down the street, it gives them an opportunity to build this community and to build this network that they know they don't have the financial backing to be able to spend all of those marketing dollars to do. But they can use social media and these online tools and platforms as a way to build this community and help build their lists, build their email lists, build that community of people that know who they are. And it's a great way for especially small businesses, but really businesses of any size. Because what it comes down to, as we all know, because we're sitting here doing this broadcast online, I mean, this is where we spend our time. Yes. This is where even the people that may not be involved in this medium, but it's where people still spend their time. We look at the staggering numbers of over 1 billion people on Facebook, and millions of people with Twitter accounts and YouTube channels and Google Plus accounts, and it's where people hang out. I mean, it literally is kind of the new place to hang out, so to speak. So for businesses, I believe that they have to engage and work with these individuals and find these individuals where they hang out, which is obviously online. So I think it can be a very useful tool if a business approaches it in the correct manner.
Okay. And I'm sure you've been asked by your clients, and a lot of business owners would have this big question: how can I get better results, using social media?
Well, the first thing that when I'm talking to a business, especially if it's one that they're real hesitant, or they may have done some things on their own. Maybe they've got a decent website, or maybe they have a Facebook page, but they haven't really jumped in. The first part of the conversation is, okay, what exactly do you want to achieve? What's the goal? We all hear what the objectives. We all hear the term ROI, return on investment, thrown about, especially with social media. Well, my question back to the business owner is, okay, exactly what goals do you want to achieve? Now, I know the easy answer to that is we want more business, we want more sales. Everybody in the world wants more sales. But you have to quantify exactly what does that mean. I kind of turn it around to the business owner and say, okay, so you spent X number of dollars on radio or television or print last year. Did you ask that same question? Did you ask, what am I going to get out of this? What is going to be my return on this? A lot of business owners don't. But it's funny, they come to social media and they're instantly like, okay, what's going to be my return on this? But you're not asking that question with all the other advertising and marketing you do.
Yes.
So it's a valid question, and it's something that the business owner has to. And the way that I look at social media is it's not a marketing conversation per se, it's a business conversation.
Right.
What do you want this objective to be? Do you want it to be more sales? Okay, then we need to track and look at what it costs to get a sale now. I mean, what's the cost of a sale now? And how can we integrate social media and digital marketing as part of that? But more importantly, do you want to be more aware in the public? Do you want the public to know more about who you are, what you do? Do you want to, like one of the clients that I work with, they're really striving to use social media to build a community that realizes that they give back. They're not using it necessarily to sell product, but they're using it to make sure that people realize more and more about what they do and what they do within the community. But that's a quantifiable goal that we've set, that it's easy to measure. So it's not that you can't answer that question, but you've got to know more before you can really directly answer it.
Exactly.
Speaking of questions you may get from business, and
I'm sure you get a lot.
I'm sure you get a lot, you know, and I'm sure
all over the board.
yeah, and I'm sure you get a lot, you know, just not knowing, you know, what the next step is. But in terms of questions you get from your clients, using social as a platform, what's the most asked question, you know, that you get when you're setting up a client? Especially, I would think that clients that maybe aren't familiar with social, getting in for the first time, or maybe even ones that have been doing it for a while, maybe not getting the results they want. And, you know, what are some of the most frequently asked questions that you get from your clients?
Well, some of the most frequently asked, as you probably wouldn't be surprised, is why on earth would I want to be on Facebook?
Wow.
Because they view Facebook as all of the drama, all of the game invites, all of the Aunt Mary gets on there and complains about what's going on in her life type scenarios. And we've all seen that. We all have an Aunt Mary like that in our Facebook stream or our news feed. So a lot of times businesses ask that question of why would I want to be part of that? And I mean, it's a valid question. And to give you an example, I have a strategic alliance and work very closely with a good friend of mine, Patsy Stewart. She lives here locally and she owns the Social Buzz Lab. And we work a lot of things. She's
actually listening to you now.
I was going to say, she's probably listening now, so I better watch what I'm saying. But we work on a lot of projects together, and one of the industries that she's talking to a prospective client is, let's just say it's in the banking and investment industry, without getting too specific. And they made the point, they said, we don't want to be on Facebook because of a lot of the things that I just mentioned. And it's a valid thing for them to say, and for the audience that they're going after and for their target, their demographic, I understand why they're saying that. You know, they're more attuned to a LinkedIn business page. They're more attuned to Google Plus and YouTube and doing very specific things. But a lot of times businesses will ask that question, why would I want to be on Facebook? Or they don't understand the entire dynamic of social and online, and they ask, why would I want to be on social?
Right.
And it's real easy to break that down, forgetting about the specific platforms of Twitter and Google Plus and Facebook, and breaking it down to asking that simple question. Okay, if you need to find out something, what do you do? Well, you go online. I mean, let's face it, you Google it. You do research online. Well, it's not a big stretch of the imagination to realize that the majority of businesses, their market is doing the same thing. They're searching for information, products, details, data, whatever the case may be online. So you need to have that online presence, either through your own website and blog, as well as these social channels. But probably the biggest question is, why do I need to do this? And then that's followed up by the misnomer of the entire industry is, well, it's kind of free to do that, right? Well, not so much.
I can see how that. I can see how that would be. I mean, it's funny you bring up the whole Facebook question because people see the kind of the surface, kind of the silliness, but they don't really see that. Oh man, I could really make use of this, and you know, this could really help me. It really help my business. And so, yeah, you're right. It's a platform. Speaking of social media platforms,
but before we go on, I would just like to mention and say hi to Marie. She's Live in Lime in on Twitter, and we have Elizabeth, and we have Patsy.
Hello, we have a number of people watching live. And I want to thank everyone for putting up, for waiting for us. We went out a little late, but thanks for hanging with us because this is really great. John is really giving us some great information here.
Now. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I got to know Marie got to know who Marie was probably over 2 years ago.
Wow.
Because back then, another person that I know through social media, Debbie Fagan with eTrend Shop. Debbie, in conjunction with Marie and Living Lime, they were doing some promotions through both of their business pages and Twitter and things of that nature. And I actually won. It was like this. I want to say like this gift pack that they were giving away.
Oh.
And what was funny was it had a beach towel in it and a very womanly looking beach tote in it. And of course they loved giving me a hard time about the fact that I got the beach tote and the beach towel. Which was fine because I told them, I said, well, I'll give those to my wife. But last year when I was out in California for the Orange County Social Media Summit, I was able to meet Marie in
Nice.
person and hang out with her and her husband and had some great conversations with her. And she's just a quality person.
Yes,
and that's
she
one of the
is.
great things about social media.
Oh yeah.
When we've met her also when we were in LA, she's awesome.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
She is.
Absolutely.
That's the beauty of social media.
Oh, it is.
It is.
I mean,
Had so many great people.
oh
Yes.
yeah, absolutely. Speaking of social media platforms and business owners, do you have a recommendation for what might be the best one to use, or it really does depend on the business or the industry?
Well, it really does depend on the business and the industry.
Okay.
It depends on, it's literally a marketing 101 or a business 101 type conversation. What is your target market, your target demographic niche, and where do they hang out, and some research has to go into that. Obviously it's at least for us, since we kind of hang out in this medium, for a business owner, if your target market includes a majority of women, well, then you have to be on Facebook, you have to be on Pinterest,
Yes.
you have to be using some specific tools. Now, does that mean that every single business has to look at every single platform? Absolutely not. Because as we know, there's probably a good top 4 or 5 major platforms, with it being Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest and Google Plus and Twitter and LinkedIn and YouTube. So there's a lot of platforms. Well, there are. And for a business owner, they have to decide, okay, what's best to reach my demographic, and what's best for that business to be able to actively keep up and actively keep that community engaged and going. And obviously that's where, a lot of businesses turn to people like myself and others that can help them with that. But for the business to say, okay, I only want to be on Facebook because I only have time to do one, well, that's not necessarily a bad answer as long as they've researched it and made sure that Facebook's the right one for them to be on.
Right.
And I've told business owners before, if you're going to do this yourself, let's research and find out what the best platform is and stick with one. It's okay to start with one and build it up and get it to where it's really solid before you worry about going on to something else.
That's a great
Very,
tip,
very good
because
tip.
I'm working with someone kind of on the side right now who was brand new to social media of any kind, who's working with YouTube. He's an ex-sports broadcaster. He's developing a YouTube channel, and he didn't even really know what YouTube was, but using your advice, you kind of using your getting them accustomed and getting them really good with one channel first. Not only will they get good, but I think their confidence grows, and then they're kind of ready to take the next step.
Plus,
Well,
it's
and if they build up that audience of that one channel, it's easier to build up another audience because you've got that base to work from.
Right, right, absolutely.
and I love what he said. Do your research and also know your audience, because there are a lot of platforms out there. I remember when I was still working in an advertising agency, sometimes our clients would like, "Oh, I want to be on Facebook now." It's like, wait a minute,
Slow down.
let's sit down and talk about it, right? And
Right.
it's not just because a lot of people are using one medium does mean it fits your business. It really depends if your audience is playing there.
And also, I think
it really does.
Yeah, and also I think you'd want to control your message too. I mean,
Yes.
it's one thing to get a Facebook account and you don't really know what to put on there, and you end up making some serious mistakes because you got to be careful about perception and how people perceive you, right?
You do, because what people, and I think we have evolved to a certain extent that what people see online is really impacting their perception of a brand. And it's funny because we've all seen these examples, and there's blog posts as long as our arms put together of these examples about how companies have blown it, how they have done something wrong, they've said something wrong, or they've jumped in and they've created these platforms and these profiles, and then they don't keep them up. And one of the to me, one of the best examples most recently has been the the problems that Carnival Cruise Lines has had over the past
That's
few
a good
months.
one.
And it has literally been what I would describe as a PR debacle, because they've had all of these problems going on, and their, the head of the corporation and their PR department has been very slow to respond. There's been no engagement and response in a social platform, and it's just killing the brand, because people are out there on Twitter and everywhere complaining and talking and joking about Carnival Cruise Lines. And it's not that they need to respond to every one of those, but they need to be putting out a positive message and putting out their side of the story, and they're not. And for a business to have these social platforms without having that preparation behind them to respond is really setting themselves up for failure.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are some pretty big challenges. And speaking of challenges, what challenges do you experience working with businesses and when it comes to social media? And what are the things you do to help overcome those challenges with those businesses?
Oh, great questions. I think a lot of the challenges stem from businesses not being ready to embrace social media. They may think, okay, we need to get involved with this, or somebody's telling them that they have to get involved with it. Or if they're part of a larger corporation or they're a franchise or something, they're being driven to become involved. But they may not completely buy into it. Another aspect of that, or another leg of that, is they're not prepared, or the people internally, not just management, but the rest of the employees are not buying into it.
Right.
So I think that's kind of a slippery slope to start into this without full buy-in from management, from the top one down or from the bottom one up, of people buying into, okay, this is part of how we get our message out.
Right.
And part of that tone literally can be set from the top down, and really should be. I mean, the marketing department can say, hey, we need to do this, but if it's not driven from management and ownership, people tend not to get on board as much.
Right.
You know how most employees think of us marketing people. They think we're flakes anyway. They think we get
especially social media types.
Right, exactly. They think we get all the perks and the T-shirts and the beer drinks, and that we don't do anything. So you've got to get that buy-in from an executive level.
Yeah.
Nice,
And I think a lot of businesses miss that. The other thing is, I think they overlook that this is a true commitment on the part of the business.
Yes.
As part of what I do for some of my clients is I'm their community manager, meaning that I manage their accounts. And anybody that has done that, either for their own brand or for another brand, one of the most challenging things that we have to deal with is having the content to consistently have that message out there. And it's funny, because you talk to a business owner that's owned a business or has been in a business for 30 years, they can sit there and talk to you until they're blue in the face about the business, about the history, about why it's different. But you ask them for those details because it would make good, blog posts or Facebook posts or Google Plus updates or whatever. And it's like pulling teeth.
Right.
So I think a lot of businesses underestimate that you have to have this material ready and able to share. You have to have the ability to, maybe shoot a quick video and put it on YouTube. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you have to be able to film something and show the history of the company, or show like a before and after and things of that nature, that they're not thinking like that now, typically. So the hurdle is to get them to start thinking like that as it applies to social media and marketing.
Do you find now, and one of the things I see in business is the day, and I think we're old enough to remember back in the day when it was all driven by the company. The marketing messages were coming from the company. It was in form of traditional commercials or other marketing messages. They controlled the message. They were able to rehearse it and produce it. Now in the age of social media, like you talk about embracing it, which I think is very important. I think that the genie's out of the bottle, and if you're not embracing it, you're going to be screwed, basically.
Well, that's exactly right. And I will never forget a conversation that I had with a business owner. And this is going back several years, because several years ago, as I transitioned out of sales into more of a marketing role, I worked in the restoration industry. They're the people that you call whenever the pipe bursts, or there's a fire fire in the home or whatever, and you need to get the stuff cleaned up. And it was really funny because I started out consulting with a company and an organization that had a bunch of members in an association. And I was talking to a group of business owners about social media and how the restoration industry needed to embrace it. Because the restoration industry for years lived and died by the insurance agent.
Right.
If my buddy Marty was an insurance agent, I could count on him sending me all of the business. Well, that has changed over the years to where the restoration companies literally have to market themselves and compete for business. They didn't have to before. But in talking to these business owners, I'll never forget one of them said, okay, if I have like a Facebook page or if I have one of these social media accounts, people can be on there talking about my business.
Right.
And I looked at him and I said, here's what you don't understand. People are already talking about your business.
That's a great point.
Good or bad, they're out in the community talking about you. You just don't know about it.
Yep.
If they talk about you on your Facebook page, you have an opportunity to engage them, to respond either negatively or positively. But I said, people talk about your business. I mean, we're all human beings. If we have a good experience, we'll tell a few people. If we have a bad experience, we're going to tell everybody that we see. It's just the way that we are. I mean, we'll stop strangers on the street and say, that car company really messed me over.
Right.
That's just the way we are. So as businesses, they have to realize that, yes, the power truly, it's always lied in the hands of the customers.
Right.
But I think companies kind of fooled themselves into thinking they could control it.
Yeah, I mean,
they really can't now.
You mentioned the pain point. It's obviously much more of a motivating factor to talk about something you've had a bad experience, because there's pain involved. When you have some good experience, you hear from some people, it's not much of a motivating factor. But what you just said, the whole idea of authenticity, and it's being talked about anyways, so you might as well get on there. I tell people all the time, especially people that aren't familiar with online and social, that instead of being afraid of it, look at it as an opportunity. You have an opportunity to present yourself in the best possible light, to present, to put that perception out there and control your personal brand. Everyone has a personal brand, businesses, personal. Take that opportunity. Instead of being afraid of it, you can control that message. Now, are you going to prevent people from talking badly about you? No. I mean, you're always going to get some of that, but you know what? You can also control how you react to it, what you're going to do about it, and all that,
Well, and for businesses, if nothing else, and I've advised business owners to do this before, if you're not ready to jump in and embrace social media, here's what you do need to do. You need to go onto the major platforms, Google, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. At the very least, reserve your company name, your business name or whatever you would see your social media handle being, or your, for a business page name. At least sign up and reserve those. If nothing else, just get in there and start, being kind of a voyeur and watching, seeing what people are talking about, seeing how Twitter works, because there's still a ton of people that don't get Twitter, but just kind of step in there and see how it works. Watch what's happening, watch what your competition is doing, or maybe not doing, but see how this all works, and then make some decisions about how you want to step into it. But at least kind of reserve these names, it's like reserving a domain name. At least reserve the name of your company or your Twitter handle or whatever you want, and then just sit there and do some research. Again, going back to talking about doing research.
Yeah, I mean, that's such good advice. Did you have a question, Brian?
Yeah, we have a question from Elizabeth for you, John. He says, how do you help businesses realize true return on investment? There are so many ways to falsify these kinds of numbers.
See, and I think that's one of the things, because, and I hate to use the term regulated, but within the social media, it's real easy to monkey around with those numbers, so to speak. And I think what a business has to do, like we talked about a few minutes ago, business has to decide, okay, what do I want the return out of this to be? What do I want the return out of having a Facebook page to be? Do I want it to be, more likes? Do I want to use it as a call to action to get people to sign up for my newsletter? We've worked with some restaurants to where they specifically use different social tools to promote a specific coupon, like a free appetizer or whatever, because it's very easy to track because they know where that information went out. So use your community as that community is being built. Decide on some specific goals of what you want to use it for. And I know for every business at the end of the day, it's about more sales. But how do you take that step? Is it by getting a community that's more engaging? Is it by offering that community something that's a call to action, like, retweet this and you're entered into a drawing for a free consultation? Decide how you're going to use the tools and then put your own tracking mechanisms in place. One of the best things I think that has come along through in this entire platform is how Facebook gives the page administrators and page owners all of the insights. Now we could talk all night about what the insights mean and and the search graph, and does Facebook monkey around with the numbers? I don't know. But there's a lot of that data that is out there.
Yep.
But using that combined with plugging in Google Analytics to all of these things that you're doing, it at least gives you those tools to be able to track your efforts. And you can see, based upon a certain period of time, be it 3 months or 6 months or a year, okay, I've put this much effort into it. What has it brought back to me? And every single business is going to be different as far as what that ROI is.
Right.
Whether it's going to be more sales or more community engagement or more shares or more likes that lead to more sales and whatever. So there's not an easy brushstroke type answer to it. Every single business is going to be different with that.
Boy, I'll tell you.
You know what? I think we need to get him back again.
This time has gone by so fast. We're 30 minutes in. We're gonna try to wrap things up, but I think we're gonna, John. I think we need to have you back at a future date to continue this. This has been absolutely fascinating, really informative, and I know hopefully people watching have think the same thing, and it's been great. A lot of great ideas.
And I've learned a lot.
Oh, I have too.
Well, I mean, it's the power of social media. I mean, that's how we got to know each other. That's how you two got to know each other. The power of social media is why I made the trip out to California last year to speak at the Orange County Social Media Summit. I mean, it's literally that power of bringing people together that, this has all happened because of social media. So.
Oh, absolutely. As a way to wrap things up.
Plus, also, I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you even more, John. Maybe you could tell us where they can find you.
Oh yeah, but before we get into that, I know we're going along, but if you could give us kind of wrap things up, give us especially a new business owner who is not familiar with social media. What's the one piece of advice you'd give him? To do the first thing that person's got to do.
Well, the first thing that person needs to do is, and this may surprise some people because it's not going to be, sign up for a Facebook page or put a cat video out on YouTube. It's going to be make sure that you have your own hosted website.
Yes.
Because in all of these platforms that we talk about, the only piece of real estate that you own is your website.
I love that.
I mean, Facebook can change at any time. Yep. Google can change. Twitter can change, whatever. So the first piece of advice would be to have your own website hosted with a blog as part of it. That would literally be number one. Number two, I would encourage kind of that second step would be to make sure that you have your Google Plus account, which also ties into your YouTube account automatically, of course, and being able to having that blog component in Google authorship. At the very least, that makes sure that people can find you online whenever they search for you.
Oh, absolutely.
Past that point, it's literally look at the platforms and see what's going to be right based upon your demographics and based upon how much time you can devote to it as well.
Boy, that's a great point about
owning a big piece of
owning your. We always talk about that.
Yeah, we do owning your spot because all these free services. And it's very similar to what you say, John. I look at it as you got the wheel in the center. And then you got the spokes going out.
That's
and
exactly
you can use
right.
Twitter and all these services.
Sure.
If one of the spokes goes down, the whole thing doesn't come down. You still got your foundation. And you have
your own house.
You have your own house. And you want to be directing people, using these other services, direct people back to your own house.
Well, and I'll never forget whenever Google Plus first really came out, there were a number of people that kind of ditched their blogs and only
Yeah.
used Google Plus. And I'm like, you know,
Well,
that's great. That's great in a couple of different ways. But what if this falls on its face and Google does away with it in a few
Right.
years, and you're dead in the water?
Right.
So kind of the same thing. You have to own as much of your own content as you can, and your own website is the only way that you can do that.
Right. And, you know, and free's great, but it doesn't cost all that much.
Exactly
I mean,
right.
it's a few dollars a month. It's not a big deal. And if you don't
That's
know,
exactly right.
get with someone who does know.
Yep.
John, this has been a very fast 30 minutes.
Oh, it's been great to.
Let people know, you know, where they can find more about you, where they can contact you online.
Plus, since you're a trainer also, maybe they need training.
Yes,
Yeah.
where they can find out more information.
Certainly. My website is just johnlusher.com. I tell people it's real easy. Just Google my name and you'll find me. But yeah, johnlusher.com. Of course, I'm on Facebook as well as John Lusher Consulting on Facebook. On Twitter, @John Lusher. And a little piece of trivia for you, since Patsy has been watching and listening.
Oh, yes.
Patsy and I were two of the first Twitter accounts in the state of Virginia.
Wow.
So we've been at it for a while, which I'm not really sure what that says about either one of us. But you know, I'm also on LinkedIn and of course here on Google Plus. And what I tell people is, whatever your favorite social network is, search for me and you'll be able to find me.
Excellent.
Plus,
And one thing that I want to throw in right before the end is I'm working with Hootsuite. We're going to have here in Roanoke on April the 25th, Hoot Up Roanoke. It's hashtag
Wow.
Hoot Up ROA, working with Hootsuite to bring them to town to do the first ever Hoot Up here in Roanoke.
nice.
Nice.
So that'll be
Well,
kind of neat.
we'll certainly be sure to get that in the show notes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank
For everybody who's watching us, we'll put all the details so that John has mentioned in the show notes so that they won't
Excellent.
miss.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
John, it's been a
you.
pleasure. Wasn't that a really great conversation with John Lusher? He is just fantastic.
It's like the time was too short.
Oh, I you know what? I mean, and to share with everyone who may not tune in live, in fact, this podcast, the content for this podcast came from our live show, our live netcast we do every Sunday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. We call it Podjam TV Live. It's available at podjam.tv/live. And you can view it right there on our website.
Yeah, if they want to do it live, watch us live and
Yep.
ask
Participate
questions.
ask questions through Twitter.
We use the hashtag PTV Live, and you know, if you have any questions for succeeding guests or whatever, they should follow that every Sunday, 8:30 p.m.
And the reason why I mentioned it, we were having a little technical difficulties getting our live broadcast set up, but it was worth it.
Yep.
I mean, we had great participation from folks on Twitter, and John just has a ton of information. He just really knows digital marketing, really knows what it means to really present a good, presence on social media.
And for those of you who are worried that you didn't catch where to find John, well, just check the show notes, and we have placed them all there.
Absolutely. So wonderful show with John. And in fact, it went by so fast. We're definitely going to have him back at some point. Why don't we talk about our sponsor, furrysketches.com. This is something that you run.
It's a site for your inspiration, and it's also a site wherein you can order your custom-made pet portrait. So go to furrysketches.com.
And we have the URL down below us.
/order to make your order. It's $35 per drawing, and it'll take us like 3 to 5 business days.
Now people just send in a nice clear photograph of their pet, dog or cat or some other pet. So far we've gotten a lot of dogs, some cats,
and now we have some cats, which
some
I
cats.
love.
And if maybe people have other pets. I mean, you're open to other things, right? Yeah. You'll do other things, yeah, absolutely. So surprise us.
Yes.
Challenge us, right?
Yeah.
Challenge you. I don't do the drawing. What am I saying? It's like, come on.
And
Come on,
then
people.
after 3 to 5 business days, they receive their pet portrait, and you can put it in a frame. You can do a T-shirt.
Deliver
you
to
can
you as
make
a
it a
digital
mug.
file, JPEG. Yep.
And you can do a lot of things with it. It can be for you or for your friends. We've been getting a lot of orders lately as a gift for their family members, for their boyfriends, for their husbands, for their wives.
Right. Absolutely. Birthdays.
Yes.
Yeah. So check out Furry Sketches, everyone. Misty does an incredible job over there, and I think if you're a pet owner, I think you'd really enjoy it. I think that does it, right?
Yes.
Episode 9 in the books.
And yep.
So we'll be back again next week.
Next
Until then,
Tuesday. Yep.
next Tuesday. And until then, this is Marty Misty. We'll see you later.
Go.